happen. So.
Gotcha. All right.
I can introduce you though.
Oh, well, all right. How about that? That's new and fancy.
I'm pleased to announce Alyse McConnell will be leading the next 3 sessions, and she is a founder and principal at Think Well Workplace Enrichment Coaching, and she's a former owner of Faber Products here on Bainbridge Island. She's noted for her organizational skills, expertise in systems planning, and she's also expert at motivating her clients to achieve breakthrough results in her coaching practice in business and life. And she's professionally certified through the International Coach Federation, and she's trained in such programs as Powerhouse Speaking for speakers, Coaching for Great Work, the Empowerment Dynamic, and she's worked for a number of large corporations, helping employees achieve good results, great results. Her information up over here, this is her website, if you want to check her out. If you want to log into Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi, this is it. It's an uppercase P, an $, W0RD.
And if I could add just a couple things too, I'm Leslie with Office Expats, and so Alyse 2 years ago did a very short version of what I think you're going to be kind of rolling out now, which is, I think we even called it Looking Back, Looking Forward. I don't remember, it's 2 years ago. But anyway, so Alyse was very much a part of the formation, the early stage formation of now what has been a long and wonderful tradition of business skills workshops on Tuesdays at noon. So I just wanted to, for those of you who are old timers, you might remember back when we met in the front room and you know, she talked to us about goals. And then just as another side note, Alyse does coaching for me and for Office Expats. So I just want to say thank you very, very much. And we're really happy to have you here. Thank you. Well, thank you for the warm introduction, and I want to be transparent that when Leslie and Ann asked if I would be willing to do this, my first reaction was, I can't, because I am co-chairing an auction that is Saturday night. So I said, well, the first one's just going to have to be no materials, just a conversation, and it's actually the first one is a perfect conversation because it really is going to be your work with you, your work on however you think this year has gone, and we'll talk about why that's important in just a minute. So, a couple of things to know about me. As it's actually such, I really appreciate the introduction because it got me present. I kind of came up the ranks doing a lot of systems work. I work for consultancies. I work doing process improvement and supporting people to shift how they work. And I was pretty good at it. I like things that are different. I like to move fast. I like things to work. I get actually kind of annoyed and a little stressed when they don't work. But over and over and over again, what I found is that you can have the best system for whatever it is you do, whatever widget you produce, whatever service you offer, you can have the best services on the planet, do the best systems on the planet. But if the people aren't enrolled, if by enrolled I mean like they want to do it, not just because you tell them, they actually see there's a benefit for them to do it, or if the people aren't present, in other words, they're there, but their mind's on the fight they had with their teenager or on how much their boss isn't jack, go ahead, Jern. It impacts however that system goes. It has nothing to do with the quality of the system. And I actually have learned in the last few years that in fact, if the system can actually be just okay if people are present and enrolled. And it has much more to do, and so that's the same for all of you. I'm assuming all of you are here because in some capacity you're responsible for something, either running your own business or running something in your life, or you're responsible for your own life. If you're not feeling like you're responsible for your own life, you definitely need to talk to me later. Because you're the only one, right? There's always circumstances, there's always stuff, but at the end of the day, you're the only one. You're the one, and we're going to talk in a little while about power and how it relates to this. But one of the, so this is a long way around to saying that part of what has me in this work is I wanted to better, I had a good intuitive sense, but I wanted to better understand What gets in people's way? What keeps them from doing their best work? And how can we position them to experience doing their best work from freedom and joy? Right? Because we all know the experience of doing our best work from like drudgery and time to make the donuts. And we all know how to do that. Some people actually are right now, I know no one in this room, but right now, there are some people doing that right now about the holidays. Right? And the kids' Christmas party, and I'm gonna have the open house, I'm gonna do this, and I gotta get my beer, and I gotta get my tax stuff ready, and they're surviving. And they're getting all the boxes ticked, and the Christmas cards are out, and the menorah is lit, and it's not freedom and joy. You can actually have all of it. You can tick the boxes and have freedom and joy. And a big piece of that begins with completion, which is what we're going to talk about today. Ending this year powerfully, positioning yourself, actually hitting the reset button. Have you ever had that experience where you have to reboot your computer because it's just glitchy? It's not one thing, but it's just a little glitchy, a little slow. And what's the first thing you do? You reboot it. And you realize, wow, I had 17 windows open in Firefox. And look, I got Excel open and Word and a graphics program and. That's kind of how we get. But we don't actually hit a restart button. We might shut down Word. We might be like, oh God, I realize I'm worrying about this. And we might take care of that one thing, but we don't do like the reboot. So consider that this and the next 2 sessions is an opportunity to reboot. And it is actually just as simple as rebooting your system. You being here, this hour will begin to create that. So let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say about. So if you're able to, I get that everyone has responsibilities, but if you're able to, give yourself this whole hour. Turn your phones off, at minimum put them on vibrate. Like give yourself the whole 52 minutes that are left to just be here for yourself. You actually probably can afford that time. I know there are exceptions, but we go around in life like we need to be, and that like pulling us away, it has a cost. So take this hour to really get complete, and you actually will find you have more power for the rest of this month and are actually positioned for the next year. So, and then if you need to take care of yourself, if you need to, use the restroom or whatever, just feel free to do so. This is going to be a conversation. I'm going to ask you to do a lot of work with yourself. So if you have, it looks like most of you have something to write with or write on. And then I'm going to ask you what you think about stuff. It's kind of amazing that I actually happen to know a lot of you, so there's a lot of wisdom in this room. So let's capitalize on it. So our intentions are, Think Well, so my organization, our intentions for any course is for you to walk away with first awareness. And not some awareness out here of how cool, like you get those TED Talks or those videos on Facebook or LinkedIn and you're like, wow, it's so cool to know that exists. But I actually am inviting you to have awareness for yourself. Like, oh, this is what I do. Because with that awareness, I know the first thing is to sometimes pick up a stick and say, this is what I do. But it's actually just like, oh, you could actually own, this is what I do. And what are the specific tools and structures that I need to do something different? So awareness, and then we're going to talk about some structures and some tools. And if you're not sure what I mean about structures, don't worry. By the end of these next 3 times, you'll be talking about structures like they're normal words. So the other piece I want to point out is this is not the law. This isn't gravity. This isn't red means stop. This is just a way of looking at life. And I'm not attached to being right about it. I've done thousands of hours of coaching at this point. I have worked with hundreds of people. I have worked with dozens of organizations. So I'm pretty confident that a lot of it is valuable and works. But we are all very different people on the planet. I am sure that if we went around the room, we would find things that we have in common that are producing anxiety and concern about next year, and excitement and delight about next year. But we would also find really different conversations. And it's because, guess what? You all grew up in different households. The funny thing about how we operate as adults is many, many, many of those conversations were formed when you were about this high.
You learned so much before you fully got present to what your choices are, how things work. Only once you hit school were you aware, like, oh, not everybody's family does it that way? Huh. But by that point, it was pretty well ingrained. There's good news and bad news about that. And by bad news, I mean stuff that serves you or doesn't serve you. It might have been perfect for a certain point, and then it doesn't serve you anymore. And as adults, we have to be constantly looking at peeling that off and having a look. Does this serve me? So that's part of what the conversation of today is. What is the stuff you made up about what you didn't do last year, or the year we're currently in? You've made some stuff up. There's some facts, and then there's all the stuff piled on top. And I'm a big proponent of taking any of that stuff that's piled on top that doesn't serve you and just setting it aside. We spend a tremendous, has anyone seen the jelly bean video on Facebook? Oh my gosh, we'll figure out how to get it to you. Maybe I'll begin with it next time. This guy took the time to create this pile of jelly beans that represents every day of our life past age 15. And it sounds like it could get a little distressing, right? Because at the end you're like, oh, I should be spending every moment perfectly. But it isn't. It's actually like, I should actually just be intentional about it. You know, he carves out how much time we spend sleeping and working and spending time with our gadgets and eating, and you know, he does this great job, and then he's like, okay, this is what's left. So anyway, one of the things he says is that he's counted out, and I only saw it once, so I don't have the number not memorized, but he actually allocates how much time we spend worrying. I have yet to meet the person who can articulate in a convincing way that I agree with the value of worry. It is an energy suck, and it has, from my perspective, no purpose. Now, I'm really willing to engage in the conversation because, oh my gosh, every human being does it. Some more than others. Have you met my mother? But we all do it. Even with as much transformational work as I've done, guess what I'm thinking about at 4:18 this morning? Oh my God, I got the show flow and the auction, and I gotta do this talk, and will anyone come, and will I remember what to say? Not productive, especially not at 4:18. But probably not productive anywhere. So there is this natural tendency toward, and we can interrupt it if we want to. So that might be one of the tools we walk away with today. So anyway, I think we started with, this is not intended to be the law. I want you to notice where I already know this shows up. Or, yeah, I don't agree with that. Like, that's how we go to class, right? We go like, what will I agree with? What won't I? What don't I agree with? What do I think is valuable? What don't I think is valuable? It's okay. It's how we learned. But I would actually invite you to just be like, set that aside. Be like, you know what? I don't agree, disagree. I'm going to actually leave that over here and just see what I can get for myself and create for myself today. Yeah. So what I'd like you to begin with is you taking a moment and answering the question, what do you want to get out of this? What had you come here today? Just a thought or two. And if it's a page, that's fine too. Anybody want to share? That does not surprise me about you, Dave. Anybody other than Dave want to share? Paula.
Okay. Well, one was just to see you, because you haven't seen me for a while.
I know, it's a long time. Although I have to say, it's harder with people I know in the room, just to be clear about it. My palms get sweatier.
Number one, though. Number two was to analyze, critique, and celebrate 2013.
Analyze, critique, and celebrate. Okay, great.
And then number three is to refocus and plan for 2014.
Okay.
And then the thing that I know would happen with you here would be to challenge my thought process.
Woohoo!
Any providers?
Okay, anybody else want to share? You can just speak if somebody, yeah, Bill?
Well, I guess, even though I get deeply involved in thinking and the writing and all of that, and so I'm always looking at how can we look at things differently. Here we finished 2013, it's not quite different than what I thought it was going to be like. But how should I look at it now? And how should I relate it to my thought process going forward into 2014? We change the way we look at something, we change what it is.
Nice. My daughter goes to a Waldorf school, which is the auction that I'm chairing, and I'm always amazed. I'm always like, if I could do it again, I wish my parents would have sent me to a Waldorf school. But this block, they're studying perspective, which in the Waldorf means they're going to do a lot of perspective drawing, but it means they're calling forth these kids to look at their point of view. I almost get tears when I think about that. Imagine being 13 and being asked to look at your point of view and getting like, this is just my point of view. Yours might be different. I could actually change what I see by shifting my point of view. I love that whole idea, and that is a lot of what we're going to do today. So thank you. Yes, I don't know your name.
I'm Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. A couple things. I came here mainly because I'm going to be doing eventually some live coaching, law of attraction coaching, and I want to see how you're doing, how you can do a group.
Okay.
And so that was number one. Number two was also to see, kind of like what the other two people said, see how I did in 2013 and look at it in all the positive things that happened to me, and how can I move that forward into and even more powerfully in 2014.
Okay, excellent. Okay, Leslie?
So I want to make a good story about what my last year was. I want to create like a really short, inspiring, memorable story about the year, and then I want to do the same thing for the future. I want to create a good story about what the future can be.
Okay. Anybody else? No pressure, just sometimes putting it in the room. Laura?
I'll put it out there.
Put it out there.
For me, it's less about looking back on my last year, because I feel like I had a surprisingly successful year, but that it happened because I worked hard, but I didn't have a plan to really make it happen. So I want to start 2014 with a real plan. I want to have goals and a plan to achieve them, basically, so that I can do well next year intentionally.
Nice. Big, great word there, intentionally.
And I would second that, as well said.
Dave's talking too.
Without the angst and fear of making a business plan, because I have the fear of plan making. And you're always cheery, so.
Actually, that could be a whole course, right? Business planning without angst. Thanks, Dave. Someone should take that and run with it. Okay.
Sticking to the plan after you make it, that becomes the problem.
Maybe that's part of where the
And that's where those structures are so powerful. So, yeah, one of the things they don't tell us is that you not only have to have a plan, but you have to have a plan to stick to the plan. Right? And if that doesn't make sense, I hope it will, if not by the end of the day, by the end of a week from today.
Just a small challenge on that. So I kind of believe both. I believe that you need a plan to stick with the plan, and that, blah, blah, blah. And I also have experienced success in my life with setting goals and forgetting them. And that, where just the intention piece kind of plays out. And it would be fun to kind of look at, why that works sometimes, when it's good to just sort of set it and forget it versus, holding it up in front of you all the time.
So I promise I didn't plant Leslie. But what we're going to do next is actually look at last year, what you did that you said you were going to do, and what you did that you didn't say you were going to do. We're actually going to take a moment and look at that. So that's a perfect transition. Thank you. So on a clean sheet of paper, I'd like you to write, put a line down the center. So whoa, that's magnetic, huh?
I'll be just looking at your car.
Perfect.
Sorry.
You would never know I used to sell office products. I'm still like, woo, look what this does. Although that's actually what happened when the reps came in too. I was like, oh, really? That's so cool.
And that's a really stinky pen there too. I don't know if you want to try it.
Oh, there's some others over here. I'll play with them in a second. So anyway, on the piece of paper, I guess this is vertically, and I could have said that, and many of you would have gotten it. But for those of you who are visually or whatever challenged like me, haha. So on this side, I want you to write, it's basically, the short version is what went well, or what did you do that was successful. But I want you to carve out two different categories. I want you to, like, what did you do? What happened that you said would happen? I got my website redone. I paid my taxes on time, whatever it is. And then the second one is, what happened that you didn't say would happen? Like, what was successful that you're like, wow, I didn't even plan for that goodness to come my way. And I guess this is a little different than what you were saying, Leslie. You're actually talking about in this category, what did you say would happen that you just said it and let it go, and what did you say had happened that you had to put a bunch of infrastructure in to make it happen? So have a look at that as well. So we're only on one side of the page here.
So in other words, number 2 is what happened that you simply didn't plan, but it was successful.
Yes, precisely.
What was the third point? Or just barely thinking
Oh, so I actually, in this category, to kind of Leslie's point, which of these were, I'm going to do this, and then you set it aside and it happened, and which of these were, I'm going to do this, and here's my plan, and every week I'm going to check on it, and here's the infrastructure to make sure it happens. We're going to take another 2 minutes, but make sure you have notes sufficient so you can come back to this, because if we don't have time the rest of the time in here, it might be helpful for you to make sure you can come back and see if there's anything else. So on the other side of the page, you're going to write a list of what didn't go well, what isn't complete or is not achieved. So it might be that you said, like one of the things that's incomplete for me is I said, I have everything I need to get certified as a master certified coach, which is kind of like the blast mountain in my industry. And I have everything I need, except I have to record a call and have someone listen to it and give me feedback. So I knew that in January. I had everything I needed in January. Guess what? It's December. It's not done. Now, that's something that I could complete by the end of the year, right? If I wanted to make $2 million this year, and I've only made, I don't know, come up with some random number that's not 2 million, depending on what that, let's say I've only made 1 million, which I didn't, it's unlikely that in the next 23 days or 28 days I'm going to make the other million. Like, it's not achieved and it's not likely to be achieved. So you're going to make a list of what's not complete, and you're going to, so I'll write this down. I'm going to say it and then I'm going to write it down. You're going to write down what's not complete or not achieved, and you're going to put little asterisks by those that you could possibly do. I'm not saying you're going to have to. I know it's a busy time of year. You're just simply going to call out which are those that are still in the realm of possibility.
For this year?
For this year, between now and 12/31/2013.
Are you also putting down things that wouldn't be achieved also? It didn't get achieved, or is it just about what could possibly be achieved?
Oh, sorry. The list is what you said, what isn't done.
Okay.
The list is what isn't done. And then you're going to put like a little tick mark by those, what could be. And the reason why, and we'll talk more about this in a minute. I'm not going to tell you the reason yet. Just make your list. I'll be quiet first. We're going to set these lists and let them rest for just a moment and come back to them, because what I want to do next is talk a little bit about what I mean when I talk about completion, because that's really what the order of the day is. And I use that term a very particular way. When I think about being complete with something, I'm really talking about the energy that it does not have anymore. You know the things you're not complete with because they show up in your life as complaints, or you use words like "this always happens," or "how can this be happening again?" There are things that happened before this moment that have no energy. What did you have for lunch last Wednesday? You have no idea. You might, like if it was a special occasion, there might be some reason it still has a little energy. But for most of us, it's like, did I have lunch last Wednesday? I probably did. What was last Wednesday anyway? Like, it was useful at the time. It gave you some fuel to finish your day. It tasted good, whatever. But it has no lingering need to be in your life in this present moment. There are likely some things that you're hanging on to that are taking your energy away. And most of the time they're taking your energy away not because of the fact of them, but because of what you made up about it. I should have my MCC if I were a real professional, and they're going to discover I'm not because I said I would, and that was in January, and I've had 12 months to do it. I am a loser. Right? Anybody have any voices in your head that sound vaguely like that? Oh, it's great.
I'm being sarcastic.
And it's just not true. There are some things that are true. I said I would and I didn't. That's true. That's a fact. And what else is true is that me relating to it like I'm a loser, guess how well that positions me to get that call recorded and sent in January? It's actually not in favor of producing the result you say you want. And yet we all hang out there. We all hang out like it's real. You could probably even evidence it. Well, I should have hit my financial goal because I didn't, and that means that I'm not going to be able to pay off this debt, and I have to give up my lease on my office, and. You could evidence why it's bad. I still won't buy it. Because all there is the facts. The facts are you said you would make $120,000 and you only made $70,000. And there's a gap. And you spending time bemoaning the gap does nothing toward moving you toward addressing it. So today is about sweeping out all that moaning and groaning. By the end of today, it doesn't have to be the end of this hour, I would invite you to leave the crap on the paper and restart. Open those programs anew. So we'll talk more about what I mean by that. But I want to go back to the definition of completion. So completion is releasing burdensome energy. It often is a close relative of forgiveness. I have a little bit of a wiggle for me about that word forgiveness because it implies that something shouldn't be, and shoulds are all based in unmet expectation. They're not really real. Is anyone a parent in the room? Parenthood is fraught with shoulds. There are so many things we should do. But oh my goodness, guess what? Can't do them all. You just can't. You're not capable. You are not capable of being super parent 24/7. Anyone in a relationship with a spouse or a friend? Come on, you're all in relationships. Relationships can have shoulds. And again, you invented what those should look like when you were about this tall. Maybe they got informed a little bit through the TV and media over time. But it doesn't necessarily make it any more truthful. My definition of what a good friend is going to be different than someone else's, and neither one of us is right. So when you look at that list, actually no, don't look at the list yet. So completion is really about getting rid of the burdensome energy, leaving it in the past where it belongs, and then that gives you freed up energy to get to the business at hand of addressing whatever there is to address. Guess what? Sometimes what there is to do is not do it. I could be a PCC the rest of my career, and that could be okay. It's not going to change the quality of my coaching. It's not going to, it's a credential to get me in the door if I'm really straight about it. And what you're hearing in this part of the conversation is commitment. Like, I'm not committed because I know that once I'm MCC, I will be this new thing. It's because it's a checkbox. And on any given day, there are many, many other things that I'm actually committed to and passionate about and excited about that get in the way of the checkbox. So I either need more structure to get that checkbox checked, or I need to let it go. But allowing it to hang out there as this should, that's an unmet thing, that's just a waste of my energy and, gets on other people too, because then when I whine about it, then it's somebody else's face, and on and on. So I'm using that as an example because I bet there's things on that list that you're not really committed to. So we'll come back to that when we come back to the list. So completion is, just make sure there's nothing else I want to say about it. It's just acknowledging the facts of the situation, the story of the situation, and letting it be in the past. I have it that completion, if you look up the definition of completion and the definition of closure in the dictionary, they're pretty close. In our culture, though, we kind of use closure. I actually don't have it. We use them interchangeably. And I'm going to invite you to consider, whatever words you want to use, that there is completion. Closure actually, I assert, requires something more. Some healing, some additional work. If you have a chronic complaint about something, you may need something other than a tool to address it. You might need to speak to someone. You might need to really look at what you're getting out of it. And so I bring that into the space because we use closure we use it somewhat interchangeably, and I want you to have that there is something distinct. So if anything on your list has to do with particularly a relationship or some heart space that didn't go like you wanted, you let yourself down, you let somebody else down, somebody let you down, there may be some healing piece that has to happen. It doesn't mean you have to go spend a year in therapy, but it might mean you need to do something different than what we're going to do today. That's really my point. Emotions are physiological. If I stubbed my toe, if I had, when I stumbled over this, if I had, twisted something, right, I would have a feeling, right? You have feelings. But we relate to physical pain really differently than we relate to emotional pain. If you get a bad start to your day, you might let it influence the rest of your day. Yeah, but a lot of times we don't even realize it. That day is hijacked. Whereas if you stub your toe, you don't call in sick. Hi, I can't meet with you today. I stubbed my toe. Yeah, it was a bad stub. Yeah, I can feel it right now if I focus on it. Hang on, let me look. Oh yeah, it's still there. Right? We don't live that way. I mean, how many of you have worked through bad backs, broken arms, shoulders dislocated? How many of you right now could say, actually, right now I got something, and here I am, right? But emotional pain, I guess I was too loud, we relate to very differently. I can't do that because I'm too upset, I'm too angry, I'm too this, I don't wanna. How many of you don't do stuff because you don't wanna? I don't feel like it. Let's see, I could work on the auction stuff I should do, or I could watch my TV show with a glass of wine. What do I want? There's no competition in what I want, but what did I say I was going to do? And why did I say I was going to do it? That's part of the conversation we're going to be in, right? What do you want, and what's the choice coming from? Is it coming from a place that you are, I keep thinking about this auction, my kids have been in Waldorf school for 12 years. I love this little school. You want to get me going to the point where you're zoning and your eyeballs are rolling back in your head, let me tell you about Waldorf education. I think it's magical. I really do. I really relate to it these are kids that are being created as next year's leaders, next generation's leaders. This is magic. And I'm really committed to it. And so my chairing this auction, which is our biggest fundraiser and one of the things that allows us to hold our doors open, comes from a very deep desire to give back. Because my daughter's in 7th grade, and I ain't doing it when she's in 8th grade. And after that, she's done. I mean, I could go back and co-chair the auction after she graduates, but I won't do that. So it's not a should for me. You get, there's some commitment there. There's some fire in my belly around it. I have some other volunteer activities where there might not be so much fire in the belly. When I was the treasurer at the Girl Scout troop, I was a disaster. Because I wasn't that committed to it. I did it because nobody else was going to do it, and I knew I had the skills. And that poor troop leader, somebody should help her out. And often I take on that should be me. And I was a disaster at it. So, completion different from closure. Completion is about you getting clear about what happened and didn't happen, and making some choice about how you want to relate to it going forward. So I'm going to ask you to look at the list of things that didn't happen. And first I want you to look at anything you marked that you said, yeah, I could probably do that. Going back to my example, the MCC, I could probably do that. And if it's not something you have a fire in your belly to do, I want you to let yourself off the hook. I want you to not do it. So whatever you want to do, if you want to cross it off, or if you want to cross out the little asterisk. If it is something you're going to do, actually let's do it that way. If it is something you're going to do, I want you to circle it. So just take a moment and circle anything that you have that you could possibly do by the end of the year that you fully intend to do because it's important to you? Because you're choosing from a place of, I am excited and interested in making this happen. I don't mean it's easy, but just it's something you want to do because you say so, not because it's a should.
What about it just needs to happen in order for life to go on? Not that you want to do it, but it needs to happen because life needs to go on.
Well, that's fire in your belly. It's a different sort. I mean, everyone always asks me how I created a successful coaching practice so far, and it's because I was responsible for paying our mortgage. The fear of not paying my mortgage was much greater than the fear of calling people or asking them to sample a session with me or. That fear. So not the same kind of fire in the belly, but it's real.
Yeah.
So if it's something that's got to be done, it gets circled.
There's a big or else.
Yeah. We're all grown-ups. We have those things in our life that we got to do. For me, that's taxes every year.
So it's kind of like there's two categories of motives maybe. There's the survival mode, paying mortgage, keeping the business afloat. And then there's other motives which are maybe more high value, other types of motives.
Sure. Well, and the piece about all of it that I want to underscore is there's choice in all of this. We could have chosen to live someplace other than Bainbridge Island. My mortgage payment here, way higher than my mortgage payment in Dayton, Ohio. I can tell you that. Way higher, like exponentially higher. I would be living, well, I don't even want to think about where I'd be living with the more amount I pay every month for my mortgage.
How does fear fit in?
Fit into motive?
No, yeah, so in other words, your fear of not making the mortgage payment.
Oh, I think fear's a great motivator.
Then your mind goes through all of the things that can happen, and that's kind of one of these things that can actually occur.
Well,
When fear doesn't drive action, it drives worry.
it can.
It's unproductive.
I would,
Get it to shift over to actually being a focus driver rather than just a distraction.
I would actually ask you to look at, rather than looking at fear, looking at your relationship to fear, which is a little bit, I think, of what you're seeking to. How do you relate to fear? You know, we deny it, we avoid it, we self-soothe, right, through, I mean, Stephanie the health coach can tell you, through food, through, I can tell you all the ways I self-soothe for fear. But, and it's in some ways kind of a funny thing because we don't expect to be afraid. We don't expect to be uncomfortable. You got to whatever age you have and you don't expect that, which is kind of funny because guess what? Just like the leaves are going to fall off the trees every year, you're going to have fear in life. You're going to be uncomfortable sometimes. And I would have you look at what your relationship to it is. We don't think anything, or many of us don't, I know a few people are afraid of it, but if you're just going back to that comfort piece, how many find flying in an airplane comfortable?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
First class.
No, you're back in coach.
I think it's fun.
But is it comfortable? I don't mean the flying part, I mean sitting in the seat. Is sitting in the seat comfortable?
I just make it that way.
Okay, well, so the majority, and I love that you do, and we probably all could learn a thing or two, but a lot of us find the flying part uncomfortable. But we do it anyway because it's a heck of a lot easier to get to Dayton, Ohio by getting on a plane, and by the way, way quicker and than it is to walk, drive, ride your bike, take the bus, etc. So we just relate to that discomfort. You might not have even named it. You might not even, I suspect most of you don't even complain about it. It's like, well, what there is to do is get in the plane and I'll be uncomfortable for 5 hours and then I'll get off in another city. Hey, how great. So you relate to that kind of discomfort. It's not an issue. But there are other types. I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to feel the fear and do it anyway. Is it Churchill who said courage is not the absence of fear, it's No, it's,
right thing in spite of it or something.
it's something, it's like taking action in spite of it. I think that's what it is. I'll look it up for next time. But it's not the absence of fear. There is no life where there is nothing scary. Now, I would argue that a lot of our fears are, there is no saber-toothed tiger. I mean, how many of us are afraid to have a confronting conversation? You don't have to raise your hand. I cannot tell you how many times I'm in a conversation with people and what they're afraid of is actually being straight with someone. And all that's going to happen is they're going to say some words, and someone else is going to say some words, and someone else is going to say some words, and then some more words will be said. That's all that's going to happen. But it feels way bigger. It feels like that saber-toothed tiger is there. So, you've circled anything on your list that you're going to actually take on. Now I'd like you to underline anything on your list that moves into next year's conversation. Oh, good. Excellent. Some of you have already done that. That's perfect. So somehow indicate, you can underline, I don't care what you do this, but you want to somehow mark for yourself what are those things that you're going to move into next year's conversation. And we're going to talk about those next time. We're not going to spend a lot of time on them right now.
So the circle things we're still going to do this year? Oh. And I circled things that I'm going to be taking action on, even though they're not going to be complete by the end of this year. So
Okay.
I'm not letting them go. Right?
Okay.
So I'm not off the hook. But I'm also, the chances that they'll actually be complete by the end of the year are...
So it's moving into next year.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, 10 minutes? Oh my gosh, guys, I'm way behind. All right, so with some velocity, I want you to look at the list and see if there's anything, I want you to look at the list and let go of it all. I know that's a tall order. I don't mean let go like it's not important. I don't mean let go of it meaning it's not going to happen next year. But I want you to let go of any 5-letter S word shame you have about not achieving it. And there will be a few that you might not be able to, but I want you to let go of anything that you can just say, it went the way it went. The facts are I said 2 million and I did 70,000. There's a gap. I'm making numbers up, but the facts are this, and I am willing to let it be exactly as it is and be ready to invent for what's next. So take a moment and actually do that with your lists. And if there's any flavor of, yeah, but, then it stays on your list. Because I really mean it. I want you to have as much energy on it as you do for last Wednesday's lunch. So, most of the energy that gets on us is stuff that's affecting our heart because it's believing stories our head made up. If I said, this is what I should have done last year that I didn't, and that makes me ... a bad person because, a failure, a loser, not good enough, not lovable, not smart enough. Like it evidences something. Again, not real, just something you made up. You learned it somewhere. You heard it somewhere and it stuck. It's a story, but it's got some juice and it makes your heart hurt. Like literally, like the coolest thing about being a coach in this era is we're learning about how much the science backs it up. Looking at this stuff increases our blood pressure. It makes us anxious. Oh, sorry. So, whatever's left on your list, I want you to look at it, and I want you to take a moment, and we're not going to have time to do this in depth, but what I want you to capture and what I want you to go back doing later before next time, write down the facts. I didn't hit the dollar mark. I did not get my MCC. That's the fact. And then I want you to write down what it means about you. I'm not reliable. How can I coach other people when I don't do what I'm going to say I'm going to do? I'm a bad person. No corporation's going to want to ever talk to me because I don't have the right letter in the front of my numbers or my letters. I can't even keep track that they're numbers and letters. Whatever it is. I'm a scaredy cat because I didn't want to record a call because that means I might have to change what I do and I don't want to. Whatever the stories are. And I want you to get them as stories. And sometimes what clients will say, and I will be like, well, but it's true. I am a failure because I failed at fulfilling on this thing I said I was going to do. Oh, I erased it. Return to this list. You did a whole lot of things that you said you were going to do. Why in the world would you give more attention and energy to this side of the list and not this side? There is power on focusing on your accomplishment. This isn't that everybody wins, everybody gets a gift certificate for playing, but this is actually getting present to your greatness. You produced some stuff last year. Celebrate it. You are not allowed to beat yourself up for what you didn't accomplish. Because it doesn't position you to have an even bigger, better, more fantastic, joy-filled, fun year next year. And let's be straight, some of us messed stuff up. It's okay, you're human. To err is human. Human beings are imperfect. You will never, ever, ever transcend your humanity. It'll be with you. Yay! Which means sometimes you're going to mess stuff up. It doesn't mean anything about you. It just means you're human. That's the only thing it means. That doesn't mean you're absolved of cleaning it up. If you have to give somebody an apology, or you got to get something back in integrity, or you got to go to the bank and, reconcile your accounts, or whatever it is, there's some stuff you do to make life work. But you beating up on yourself and telling yourself you're a terrible person, it has no purpose. So stop it. Most of the time when that broken record is playing, it's because we heard that early on. And you know what? Our parents did the best they could. Parents, aunts, uncles, whoever. Teachers. My third grade teacher, Mrs. Hertz, only as an adult did I get like a double entendre of the name. But she was a hard ass, and I didn't know my multiplication tables, and she told me I was stupid. I'm a lot of things. I'm not stupid.
A teacher told you you were stupid?
Because I didn't memorize my multiplication tables.
You're kidding. Shame on her.
Well, yeah, but
You memorized it.
actually I didn't.
You didn't.
Because I wasn't gonna I was gonna prove that she wasn't the boss of me. Like, I actually had this weird little resistance thing. My point in sharing that is we all have like some wacky way that we reacted to stuff that we got when we were small. It's not serving you as a 35-year-old adult that you all are. It's just not serving you. You don't have to go one more day proving that you are not a failure, not a loser, not a da-da. This is the time of year where we get all hung up, or maybe a little later in this month, but we get all hung up about what we did and didn't do. Put your arms around what you did. Is it time? Put your arms around what you didn't do. Okay. Set down what there is to set down, and it's mostly the story. There may be some facts to deal with, and we're going to talk about that next time. But let go of the stories. It doesn't mean a thing. And your power is at stake. We didn't talk about power, and we'll definitely begin there next time. Your ability to produce results in 2014 and in the rest of your life has everything to do with you being able to manage and express and come from your power. And we are wasting our power all the time. We are wasting our energy all the time. Because we should. Because we're afraid of making someone unhappy with us. Because it's easier to take it on than be straight about something. I mean, there's all these reasons. You have an opportunity today to go through your lists, get rid of the story, capture what you want to bring into next year, and then create a vision. So your homework, for those of you coming back next time, is to create a vision. I want it to be December, whatever next week will be, the 10th. What day is it? It's the 3rd? Is it the 10th? So I want you to write it from December 10th, 2014. Dear Alyse, wow, what a cool year. You finally got that damn credential you've been after. How exciting. I want you to write what you want to achieve from next year, but I want you to write it from a vision, as if it's already happened. What does it look like? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? I know smell like's kind of a weird one. But like, I want you to get like a sensory experience. This is a creative writing exercise. I want you to make that vision so delicious and juicy. What is finally hitting that dollar mark make available that wasn't available before? What is transforming that relationship with your son, daughter, sister, brother, mother, father, husband, wife make available that wasn't available before? What's your experience on the planet? Are you freed up? Are your shoulders loose? Are you getting up and feeling like, wow, I get to have another day? It's time. That's really perfect.
Instead of thank God I got up next to breathing.
It's actually so perfect. Instead of thank God I'm still breathing.
Here we go.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so we're going to work on vision next week. And we're going to talk about power, and we're going to talk about energy. You only have 24 hours in a day. But you have energy in abundance. So we're going to talk more about that.
I just want to say, just from the last few things you said, this whole thing could be looked at as power management, your personal power. So looking at goals and looking at what did or didn't get accomplished, it's kind of cool in a mechanical way to look at it as power management.
Yeah, I have a whole course on back to power, like getting back to power, because we give away our power, we lose it, or we stumble. You know, we're human, right? And me too. Like, this is not me telling you because I'm the expert. This is, I live and breathe every day. Am I going to choose to relate to this from my old story of suffering and you got to work hard to win and it's all really hard? Or am I going to relate to it from another story, a completely invented one that's more authentic to who I am on the planet? And some days the suffering wins, my husband can tell you. And other days, not so much. So, I promise next time we'll be far more interactive. And because I do know there's a tremendous amount of wisdom in the room. I appreciate your attention and intention. And I request that you go away, work your lists, and create your visions and bring your visions next time, because we're going to work with them a little bit. And here's the thing. If you're not a writer and that request feels ridiculous and overwhelming, 2 sentences. Just write 2 sentences. Like, don't make it hard. Please do not add this to your list of things to suffer over.
What about introducing a timeline? Here's something we should have finished in December. I'm not going to say, oh, that's just in process and I'll finish it in January.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That's part of what we're going to talk about when we talk about structures. Absolutely, Bill, it's great. It's really great. I'm still in process. You know what? We're all still in process. That's like the funniest joke on the planet, right? Are you done being parents? Are you done being whatever? You know, even students, right? We're, in principle, still students of life. We just aren't getting grades, or we're grading ourselves, probably pretty harshly. Thank you all. It's been a pleasure. I didn't talk about rituals of completion. I didn't talk about, there's so many things.
Karen Casey.
Nice to see you, Karen. I have a friend called Karen Carey. So it's just funny because I'm